Everyone has names. But I would not want to be called by mine. Not anymore. I would rather be remembered by a token, a jar. That alabaster jar I broke open when I poured out all I had left. A broken jar, a poured out offering, a remembrance spoken in my Lord's voice. But somewhere along the way, the world stopped calling me by the name heaven knew. They gave me new names, names that stung in silence and echoed in stares. Sinner, temptress, defiled. I was still breathing, but not truly alive. My soul had grown quiet, numb, the hollow silence of shame. Like a shadow in the daylight, always half seen, never fully known. There were days I could not even feel the sun. They said I chose this life, that I chased it, that I sold myself willingly. But they never asked what broke first, my body or my heart. They never saw the little girl who used to sing psalms beneath fig trees, who dreamed of a home filled with love, not leers. I had prayed once. I had believed once. Until one betrayal became two, and love became something of fear. Sin did not arrive in a single night. It crept in like a whisper, a wound left unhealed, a thirst left unanswered, and over time I forgot what holiness felt like. I learned to wear a painted face and speak with sweet deceit. I knew how to draw a man's glance, but not his respect. I could provoke desire, but never devotion. My value was measured in coin. And every morning the mirror became more unfamiliar, as if God had turned his face from me. I asked myself, is there still a place for the broken, for those who no longer know how to be clean? Then I heard about him, the rabbi from Nazareth. They said he healed the sick, touched the unclean, spoke to women like they mattered. Some mocked him, some followed him. But what pierced me most were the rumors that he forgave sins, not just overlooked them, but lifted them as if he alone had authority to wash even the deepest stains. I didn't believe it. I couldn't. Not for someone like me. But something in my soul stirred, like the first breeze after a long drought. I remember standing far off the day he passed by. I didn't dare come close, but he looked up, and though his eyes passed over many, I could have sworn they lingered on me, just for a moment. And in that moment, something inside me cracked open. A whisper. Come. Not shouted, not demanded, but deeply, quietly, like a long-forgotten name echoing in the chambers of my spirit. I didn't know then that I was being drawn by mercy, that the same God I had disappointed was the one calling me home, that I would fall at his feet, not in fear, but in surrender, that I would weep not from guilt, but because I was finally seen. I am Miriyam. I was lost, and he found me. The silence inside me. There were days I did not know my own name. Not because it wasn't spoken, but because it was buried under too many others. Words they called me, names they whispered behind their palms, and names they shouted in the night, thinking I could not hear, or worse, thinking I could. My name is Miriyam, but even I forgot what it meant for a time. In the dim alleys of my choices, I wandered like one without breath. You see, sin does not shout when it enters. It creeps in softly, like a shadow at dusk, barely seen until it becomes the night. I still remember the first time I traded my dignity for acceptance. I told myself it was just once, just a moment, just for survival. I said it with trembling lips and clenched teeth. But afterward, silence filled me. A hollow, echoing silence that no laughter could erase, no perfume could cover, no coin could comfort. People saw me and thought they knew, but they didn't know the prayers I whispered under my breath. They didn't see the tears that soaked my pillow. They didn't hear the questions that burned in my soul. God, do you still see me? Can you still love what's been so broken? Will I ever belong again? There were days I would pass the temple steps just to hear the psalms sung inside. I would hide behind the pillars, longing to be holy again, longing to remember what it felt like to be clean. I watched the righteous come and go, robes unspotted, eyes lifted. I dared not look them in the face, not because they condemned me, but because their eyes reminded me of who I used to be. But somewhere deep, beyond all shame and dust, a seed still lived. A memory of being a child once, loved, held, spoken over in prayer. And that memory whispered something strange. You are not forgotten. I didn't believe it yet, not fully, but I held it in the folds of my heart like a hidden treasure, a mustard seed of hope. And then I heard of him, this man who touched lepers and did not recoil, who spoke to women with dignity, not disdain, who let children climb on his lap and ate with tax collectors and sinners. Could it be? Could there be a man who sees beyond the scarlet stains? Could God walk among us and not avoid someone like me? I didn't run to him, not yet. But something began to stir. Not just longing, but a hunger I couldn't name. And the silence inside me, it trembled. A hunger deeper than bread. There is a hunger that flesh cannot satisfy, a thirst no wine can quench. I lived with it daily. It was more than the ache of an empty stomach. It was a harrowing spirit, a gnawing ache that lingered behind every laugh, every whispered promise in the dark. I had bread, I had coins, I had the illusion of choice, but I was starving. I used to think I could fill the emptiness if I were beautiful enough, wanted enough, held enough. Maybe the ache would leave me. So I painted my eyes, adorned myself in soft fabrics and sweet-smelling oils, and wandered through the arms of men who said I was unforgettable, until they forgot me. Each face blurred into another, each night promised something the morning could never deliver. And still, I kept returning, not because I loved them, no, but because I feared the silence. I feared what would rise in me if I stopped running, if I were still long enough to listen. The silence had a voice of its own. It whispered questions I could not answer. Who are you without their eyes? Would anyone love you if they knew the truth? Has God forgotten you? I remembered him, you know, God. As a child, I once believed he watched over me. I would look up at the stars and whisper secrets into the wind, thinking he heard. But as I grew, and shame grew with me, I stopped looking upward. I began to believe I was no longer worth hearing. And yet, he never stopped whispering. Not with words I could understand, not yet, but through a quiet ache that never left, through the tears that came without reason, through a longing that no one else could see. And then I heard his name, Yeshua. This Yeshua was different. Even in rumor, he seemed different. I heard he wept beside grieving families, that he defended a woman caught in sin, not by denying her guilt, but by removing her shame. I had to see him, not to ask for healing, not even for forgiveness. I just wanted to see the eyes of someone who might still see me. So I crept to the edge of the crowds. I listened, but I dared not come close. He said things I had never heard from any rabbi. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Could poverty of spirit be holy? Then what of mine, Lord? What of this broken, splintered soul? He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And suddenly, I knew he was speaking to me, not the me others saw, but the real me, the burdened, the weary, the worn out from sin, the girl who once whispered to the stars and now hid her face in shame. That night, I wept, not out of guilt, though it was there, but out of hope. A hope I had not dared feel in years. Was it possible that I could begin again, that I was not too far gone, that God still saw me and still called me? The hunger deepened, but it no longer terrified me, because now I knew it was not a curse. It was an invitation. I did not know where he would be next. I did not know if I would be welcome. But I knew this. I would go to him, even if I had to crawl, even if I was cast out again. I would not let the one who spoke of rest pass me by. For the first time, I no longer feared the silence within, because I had begun to believe that God might be in it. The empty feast. There are moments when the soul can no longer pretend to be full. I had tasted many tables. I had worn silks. I had laughed too loudly. My eyes had sparkled in candlelight, and men had praised me like a song they wanted to own. But in truth, I was starving. No feast had ever satisfied me. I remember that day, how the city pulsed with murmurs. He was in town, the rabbi, the one they called Yeshua. His stories reached even the dark alleys where I stayed. People said he healed with a word, that he touched lepers, that he looked at sinners and did not flinch, that he forgave. The word burned me. I did not even know what forgiveness felt like. I had long accepted that forgiveness was not meant for people like me. The Pharisees had said it plainly with their eyes, their sermons, their silence. I had grown up near the synagogue, just far enough to hear their words, never close enough to be held by them. I learned early on that my body could be bought, but my soul was invisible. And yet, something stirred inside me when I heard of him. A whisper, soft, persistent, calling my name from within my emptiness. Could he see me? I had avoided the synagogue for years, but this Jesus was not confined by temple walls. He walked streets. He sat with beggars. He touched the untouchables. It was as if heaven had stepped into earth, barefoot and breathing. And now he was reclining at the home of Simon, a man who had never once looked me in the eye. I stood just beyond the courtyard arch, hiding in the shadows, watching the flicker of oil lamps. My heart was beating in strange ways, faster, deeper. The alabaster jar in my hands felt heavier than ever. It was filled with precious oil, purchased through the wages of my shame. I had once used it to draw men closer. Now it trembled in my grasp, as if it knew its purpose was about to change. And then the voices came. They always came. "You're a fool to think he would want you. You'll disgrace him. You're not worthy to untie his sandals. You don't belong anywhere near holiness." They were cruel, familiar voices. Not all of them were imagined. I had heard those very words from priests, from townspeople, from my own family. But louder than them all, another voice stirred. It didn't shout. It spoke with stillness. "Come, bring your tears. Bring your ruin. Bring your silence." I know it was not a voice from outside of me, but from some sacred place within me I had long silenced. Was it him? I stepped forward. Every step was agony. My soul recoiled like a scab being peeled back. The weight of my past followed me like a procession. Every man, every night, every empty morning. But so did something else. Something holy, something I did not understand, but dared to hope for. I crossed the threshold. The air shifted. My heart thundered. Eyes turned, and the silence grew tense. I did not need to hear their whispers. I could feel their disgust. But my eyes were only on him. He was nothing like I had imagined. He didn't look powerful. He didn't wear a crown. But he sat there, the center of all things, without ever demanding it. His peace unsettled me more than any judgment ever had. He looked at me, not away from me, at me. And I broke. The dam of my soul cracked open. I collapsed at his feet, not because it was the right thing to do, but because I could not stand under the weight of being seen, truly seen, for the first time. I wept, not because I was ashamed, but because my shame finally had a place to land. Every tear was a confession. Every sob was a surrender. I had no words, but he heard them all. I took my jar, my symbol of seduction, and poured it over his feet. the oil mixed with my tears, running down the cracks of his worn soles. My hair, once a crown for my vanity, now became a towel. I did not plan this. I was not trying to impress. I was just empty, and he was full. And for the first time, I knew who I was kneeling before. He did not pull away. He did not recoil from my touch. He let me weep, wash, worship. And in that moment, I felt something breaking inside me, not in pain, but in release. I had come to him full of sin and found a place at his feet to pour it out. And somehow I knew I would never be the same again. A fragrance remembered forever. I did not know my name would be remembered. I did not come for remembrance. I came because I had nothing left to give but love. The jar was in my hands, but the weight I carried was in my soul. And I knew he was worthy, worthy of all I had, all I was, all I hoped to be. Some say it was reckless, that I wasted what could have been sold. But they did not feel the cry in my chest. They did not hear the silent hallelujah that poured out with every drop of oil. They did not know how much I had been forgiven. I knelt beside him. The scent of spikenard filled the air, strong, sweet, unmissable. I broke the jar, and in doing so, I broke with everything else that once held me. No return, no hesitation, only devotion. He did not move away. He received it. He received me. While others watched with furrowed brows and narrowed hearts, he let my worship speak louder than their rules. Some scolded me, they always had. But this time, the rabbi answered them. "Leave her alone," he said. "She has done a beautiful thing to me." Beautiful! That word wrapped around me like a healing balm. The eyes that spoke mercy. He did not flinch, even as my tears soaked his feet, even as my hair clung to the oil and dust I tried so desperately to wipe away. He did not flinch. It was I who trembled, not from fear, but from awe. For he, the only one in the room with true holiness, did not push me away. He received me. There were others present, of course. The air around them was taut like cords pulled too tight. Their silence spoke louder than words, judgment, suspicion, disdain. It pressed in from every side. Simon the Pharisee, I knew him, not in the way I had known others, but I had seen his kind all my life. Eyes like cold stone, smiles that never reached the soul, always watching, always measuring, always holding the law like a sword in one hand, and their own righteousness in the other. He had invited Jesus to dinner, but not out of honor. His table was a trap dressed as hospitality. He wanted to see for himself what kind of man Jesus really was. And now he had his answer, because Jesus had let me touch him. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. I could feel the judgment swelling in Simon's chest. I could almost hear the words forming behind his lips. If this man were truly a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. Yes, I knew what kind of woman I was. I carried the names they gave me like weights around my ankles. Sinner, temptress, waste, defiled, each one layered over the girl I used to be, until even I forgot what her voice sounded like. But then he spoke, not to me, but to Simon. His voice was steady, not loud, not angry, just piercing, like light through a veil. Simon, I have something to say to you. It silenced the room. Simon nodded, probably curious to hear what kind of lesson this wandering rabbi might try to teach. And then Jesus told a parable. A certain moneylender had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii, and the other 50. When they could not pay, he forgave them both. Now, which of them will love him more? It felt simple, gentle, disarming. Simon answered, I suppose the one who was forgiven more. Jesus smiled, soft, knowing. You have judged rightly. And then he turned to me, but he spoke to Simon. Do you see this woman? Not do you see what she is, but do you see her? For years I had been seen as a body, a transaction, a disgrace, a lesson for others' daughters. But now he was asking them to see me. I entered your house, he said, and you gave me no water for my feet. But she has wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. I could hardly breathe. You gave me no kiss, but she has not ceased to kiss my feet. I had kissed no man with such reverence before. You did not anoint my head with oil, but she has anointed my feet with ointment. My jar, my shame, poured out as worship. Then he said the words I never imagined a holy man would say of me. Therefore I tell you, her many sins are forgiven, for she loved much. He said it in front of everyone. He did not hide his mercy in whispers. He declared it with clarity, like a king announcing a royal pardon. He did not shame me. He lifted me, and then he looked directly at me, into me. The world fell silent as his words wrapped around my soul. Your sins are forgiven. Forgiven, not overlooked, not tolerated, not postponed. Forgiven. The room gasped. The murmurs rippled again. Who is this, they said, who even forgives sins? But I was no longer listening to them. Their voices no longer reached the chamber of my heart, where his words still echoed. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Peace. How do you walk after a storm that lived in your chest has been stilled? I stood slowly. The tears did not stop, but they were different now. No longer the tears of shame, but of release. The weight was gone, the ache unburdened. He had called me forgiven. He had called me seen. I felt beloved. I had been called many things in my life, but never that. And then he said something I could not comprehend. Wherever the gospel is preached, in the whole world, what she has done will also be told in memory of her. I froze. What? Me? In memory of me? I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands trembled. I stared at him, searching his eyes to see if he truly meant it. He did, not because I was great, but because my love was real. He took my offering and sealed it into eternity. I had not planned to be remembered. I only wanted to pour out my heart before the one who saw me, truly saw me. But his words made my worship into a witness, a fragrance that would follow the gospel, carried not by wind, but by the Spirit of God. Even now, I whisper, "Why, Lord, why choose me, a woman with a broken past, to be remembered with your name?" But maybe that is the miracle, that when we pour it all out, our shame, our devotion, our worship, he fills the moment with glory, and the scent still lingers, not just in alabaster or oil, but in every heart that dares to love him without reserve. When I stepped out of Simon's house, I did not know where my feet would take me, but I knew I would never walk the same again. There was a hush around me, as if even the birds were quieter, as if the earth itself knew something holy had happened. But the greater silence was within me. For years, silence had been my prison. The silence of rejection, the silence after being used, the silence of rooms emptied of kindness, of days without hope. A silence filled with memories I could not bear to speak aloud. But now, that same silence became a sanctuary. It wasn't hollow anymore. It was full, full of his voice, still echoing in me. Your sins are forgiven. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. That word felt too rich for me to hold. I had chased pleasure, performance, attention, never peace. I didn't even know what it truly was. But now, it followed me like the fragrance of that alabaster jar, sweet, lingering, impossible to erase. And I wondered, is this what rebirth feels like? I walked slowly, as if each step must learn how to belong to this new life. I could feel the old self peeling off, like a garment I no longer needed. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't immediate. Because even after being forgiven, I still remembered everything. I remembered the places I once went to hide, the names I had been called, the ones I believed I deserved. I remembered the deep hunger in me, that gaping void I had tried to feed with attention, survival, control. But none of it had ever filled me. It only left me emptier, and now I saw it clearly. I wasn't just a sinner in need of grace. I was a soul starving for truth. And Jesus, he fed me, not with bread, not with flattery, but with himself. He let me draw near. He didn't pull back. He didn't flinch. When my tears fell, when my shame poured out, when I touched his feet, he welcomed it. More than that, he called it faith, No one had ever called what I did holy. No one had ever said my heart was beautiful, but he did. And suddenly I saw my past not as a chain, but as a pathway, a path that led to that room, that moment, that mercy. The world had called me many things, but now I was his. I didn't return to the life I once lived. How could I? I could no longer sell what had already been bought by mercy. I could no longer wear the identity he had undressed with truth. When the silence was no longer empty, I didn't know what lay ahead, but I knew who was now behind me, before me, within me. I was not alone. For the first time, ever. But something unexpected began to stir inside me. It wasn't fear, it wasn't guilt. It was something gentler, something more demanding, conviction, not the kind that crushes, the kind that beckons. A quiet inner call. Come, learn of me, walk with me. Let me teach you how to live free. I began to hunger again, but now for righteousness, for nearness, for something no one could buy, or steal, or spoil. This wasn't about earning his love. He had given that freely. This was about learning how to walk in the light without blinking, because light hurts the eyes at first, especially when you've lived in shadows. But I was willing, even if I stumbled, even if I wept again, even if I had to face every lie I once believed about myself, I was willing. Because I had touched the feet of the one who touched eternity and called me daughter. And now I wanted to live like someone. As one who touched God.
If this message has blessed your heart, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe. Help us spread the light so that others too may find comfort, truth, and hope. Let's walk this quiet road of faith together.